Welcome to Modern Home Mastermind with Bespoke Brokers. I'm Shauna Glazier, designated broker and owner.
And I'm Brittany Williamson, associate broker. Shauna and I are Bespoke Real Estate, but we're also your guides to modern luxury across the entire state of Arizona.
Each week, we chat with masterminds shaping the modern spaces. Do you want to get a behind-the-scenes look at your design-build team's processes? Well, open communication and teamwork will lead you to a successful project.
From architects to builders, designers, and more, let's explore the art of modern living together.
All right, are you fascinated with Frank Lloyd Wright and the ideas behind his architecture? Well, if so, you're in for a treat today. We are joined here with guest Joseph Specter, President and CEO of the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, to explore how the foundation is carrying Wright's legacy forward.
That's right. Joe's a seasoned nonprofit and cultural arts leader and former professional opera singer with more than a decade of experience in leadership at major art institutions, including the Arizona Opera, the Austin Opera, and the Metropolitan Opera. As president and CEO of the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, he's focused on preserving and advancing Wright's legacy, helping people live better lives through the principles of organic architecture, and ensuring Wright's ideas continue to shape how we design and experience the world today.
There you go.
Welcome, Joe. We're so excited to have you.
It's great to be with you.
Yes, it is definitely a treat. All right, I think we should start. What exactly is the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation?
So the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, it's a few things. I think in the big picture, our objective as an organization is to steward the legacy of Frank Lloyd Wright and figure out how to connect that relevancy to people today in order to make people's lives better. Because the principles of organic architecture and the ideas that Frank Lloyd Wright brought to bear, did not leave when Frank Lloyd Wright passed away in 1959. Mm-hmm. These ideas and the way that they're embodied in the various properties, the programs that we bring to life at the foundation, these are ways that we can help maintain and even grow impact over a period of time. So specifically, the foundation owns and stewards the two properties that were Frank Lloyd Wright's homes at the time of his death. So Taliesin West in Scottsdale and Taliesin in Spring Green, Wisconsin. And Frank Lloyd Wright, Olga, his wife, and the fellowship would go back and forth between Taliesin and Spring Green, Wisconsin, and then to their winter laboratory at Taliesin West in Scottsdale. From the time, really the last 20 years of Frank Lloyd Wright's life. So in addition to stewarding these properties, which is, a privilege and also a great undertaking, we have the collections of that are the personal affects of Frank Lloyd Wright, Olga, his family. In our collection at the foundation, we have intellectual property related to designs of Frank Lloyd Wright and so forth. We have the collections. We don't always think of the collections being the landscapes of these properties, but they really are. These are enormous properties. It's about 1,300 acres between the two properties altogether, and the natural physical environment is part and parcel to the importance of the buildings themselves, because our organic architecture was all about creating buildings that would grace the land on which they were built. And then, this idea of how do we take these magnificent properties, the collections of the organizations, all of this knowledge about architecture, architectural history, preservation, huge part of what we do, by the way, and convert that into ways in which people today who either have some connection to this legacy or none at all can find a way to the work that we're doing so that we can perform our mission of making their lives even just a little bit better through those ideas.
Love it.
Yeah, because these places were never meant to be a museum, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They were meant to be a living laboratory.
Yeah. And unlike buildings that he created for other clients, there was this kind of idea of impermanence. There was this idea of experimentation. And I think that perfection has no place within either Taliesin or Taliesin West. And, I think one of the most amazing things is just the creative capacity of Frank Lloyd Wright to create different kinds of structures with different types of building approaches. The idea that the same person that built Taliesin West or envisioned Taliesin West, envisioned Taliesin, it's the same person that envisioned Fallingwater or the Guggenheim. It's hard to fathom. And all of that is a tribute to someone whose prolific, genius was just, unmatched in the space of architecture, for sure.
Yes, for sure. What you just mentioned, a couple of things like Fallingwater. Can you describe to us the difference, because we didn't know until we met with you,
Sure.
what the difference is between the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation and things like Fallingwater or the Conservancy, the
trust.
the
Absolutely.
trust.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
And don't feel bad. I still have family members that ask me how the renovation of Fallingwater is coming along. I think it's going okay.
They actually live stream, I think, 24/7. You can get online and view what's going on
Fallingwater
there.
Cam. No, and listen, I applaud that. I think that when you're charged with caring for UNESCO World Heritage Site, maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. The work of preservation isn't an obstacle; it's part of the process and part of the process and part of the privilege of being able to care for a place that's historically significant. But to your question about kind of Frank Lloyd Wright universe, there are a number of organizations that sound kind of similar, and you think that that we're intertwined, and we are. We're connected through the legacy of Frank Lloyd Wright. So the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, I described to you our charge a short while ago. I would say uniquely among the entities, I think the foundation is uniquely positioned. It has the charge of being a source of great connectivity for the legacy overall, being the foundation that Frank Lloyd Wright himself started. The Frank Lloyd Wright Trust and the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy are both Chicago-based. That's got to be even more confusing for folks up there. The trust cares for and manages tours with some of the more Chicago-based locations, like Roby House, for instance. The Conservancy does a magnificent job of helping to advise and provide resources for the preservation of a variety of different Frank Lloyd Wright buildings. They're there in a thought leadership advisory capacity. They punch way above their weight. Tons of respect for them. Fallingwater is its own separate organization. The Western Pennsylvania Conservancy takes care of that. And I think the thing that ties us all together is we all have a vested interest in helping to give people access to these spaces, to create programming that will feel engaging for folks, so that they can learn more. And so in that sense, we're all in it together. But I think the foundation has a special charge as it pertains not just to the two properties that we steward, but also kind of in the broader world, where even if we're not present in a certain city, in a certain state, in a certain country, constantly asking ourselves, how can we be here to help provide the connective tissue in Frank Lloyd Wright universe? And by the way, how can we create more entry points for people who have never been part of this before to feel welcome and excited about engaging with us?
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. I like the Frank Lloyd Wright universe. There almost should be like one site that lists all of the different levels. I mean, I was confused. I'm a member at the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation and support it. And then I went to Chicago and was touring everything and became a member of the Frank Lloyd Wright Trust. And I was so confused that they weren't. I'm like, I thought I was already a member, but I'm not a member. Yeah. And then toured Fallingwater. So it is. Thank you for explaining that. I think it's important.
At the end of the day, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I'm excited to be in this ecosystem. I do think that there are a lot of vacuums. One thing that I've observed about people that are passionate about Frank Lloyd Wright and organic architecture is just how excited they are when they can be together someplace, connecting, sharing experiences that they've had, sharing ideas. It's a very intellectually curious, a creatively curious group of people, and fostering a sense of community is really something that we all can do as independent organizations. But there's, in my view, a vast unmet need, because there's somebody living in some state where there's only one Frank Lloyd Wright building, and it's important to that town, and that person may not always have an outlet to connect with people who are like-minded or curious and so forth.
Okay, let's get back into the foundation. What does it do to bring the mission to life, and how does it approach preservation and making lives better?
Yeah. So
back to the foundation.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're just kind of doubling down on in this chapter is thinking about architecture architectural history, preservation as the key components. If you were to narrow, what it means to be connected with the world of Frank Lloyd Wright, you can't avoid the word architecture. So how do we bring that to life programmatically and otherwise? So I think no matter where you are in your journey in this world, our objective is to have programming that is available to you if you're intrigued by this space, by this person, by this idea of design and architecture. So there are educational opportunities that run the gamut from K through 12 programs that are run by our public engagement, youth and family programs folks, all the way up through higher learning opportunities through this department within the organization we call the Taliesin Institute, which has included among its activities partnerships with universities and colleges and so forth, architectural students, and architectural historians that are interested in doing research as extension of their classwork. We are actively and always engaged in preservation. So that is a way in which people can learn about what goes into preservation. And our approach at the foundation is what we call a values-based preservation. The idea that we are not logging into a single moment in time and trapping the space in amber, I should say, but rather to think about the context in which these spaces were created, and as we're doing preservation work, to think about what the intent was when a space was created in a certain fashion. So in that respect, the preservation work can be done using different materials if what we're trying to do is emulate the thought process of what was meant to be achieved here. And so there's a dynamism there.
So like if a space was meant to be used for music or performance, you don't necessarily have to use the exact materials to preserve.
Right.
You could use something more modern.
Yes.
If it still honors the idea of the space.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think that's such a beautiful idea. Not just, it does give our team creative outlet because they are practicing. They're in it's not like there's a manual for how to do all of this stuff. They're actively troubleshooting, and figuring out what those methods could be to do that kind of preservation work. And it's a learning experience. And so yes, that adds to this sense of dynamism. I think what's so important is that yes, Frank Lloyd Wright was a singular individual that was prolific in creating incredibly creative buildings, furniture design, you name it. But it has to be about how the legacy propagates from there. It has to be, and that's part of what excites me about values-based preservation is this idea that we're still continuing the process of that creativity today.
Well, and the program for the children that you were talking about that come in, I saw on social media, I think, was John Anderson one of the architects that was in there?
John is on our board and does a lot with us.
But I think I saw so you bring architects in to teach these kids, or what does that program look like?
Yeah, well, we have a number of youth and family programs, camps, architecture camps, and so forth. And we get so much positive feedback from the kids that are participating in that in those programs. We also have, I think something that's important to talk about is our desire to extend our community impact and reach beyond the perimeters of the properties as well. This is something we're going to be focusing on more and more over a period of time. It's not just how we can bring kids in and have wonderful educational opportunities at Taliesin West, but how can we get off of the properties and be able to bring those experiences elsewhere. We do have a really exciting partnership with the Cartwright School District that brings over 1,000 kids a year to Taliesin West to be able to have learning experiences. But I do think, especially in the age that we're in terms of social media and so forth, and the ability to have digital platforming for educational experiences. I think there's a lot that's possible, bringing all levels of expertise to bear in terms of what we can provide for folks.
I totally agree, and I think it is so important that the foundation is carrying on this educational piece, because that was so important to Frank Lloyd Wright with these two properties in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, the architecture school, it was essentially an architecture school. And I know that's no longer necessarily on campus at Taliesin West, but that education piece was always there.
Yes, and our relationship with the School of Architecture, with organic architecture and design, OA&D, other partners, the Taliesin Preservation Inc., which is our partner in Wisconsin that helps with our public tours program. All of these relationships are key for us to being able to advance people's learning. You know, I think there's so little that one organization can accomplish, but so much that this multitude can accomplish.
Yeah, for sure.
Education's a huge part of it.
Well, you also mentioned the collections that you have. Can you speak a little bit to those and kind of what you're doing with them now? Because I'm sure things have kind of been in the archives for years.
Yeah.
How are you bringing those out and engaging with people?
Sure. So, and I'm so glad you asked, because people, don't often know that we have collections at the foundation. Those collections are primarily the personal collections of the Frank Lloyd Wright of Olgavana family. There's a lot of output from the fellowship that's there, and as I mentioned before, it's also for instance the landscapes of Taliesin West that we also have to care for, and Taliesin. And I think what we aspire to do, and what we currently do, is we have available that people can visit these places and be able to study. They can find information about what is in our collections online, and we're going to be doing more and more to provide access to those things, because there are a lot of people who will never be able to come and visit a vault at Taliesin West, but if they have access to some of that material online, they might be able to learn more. We also have a very good relationship with the Avery Library at Columbia, where a lot of the physical items of the archive of Frank Lloyd Wright reside. We have intellectual property rights around that, but the physical objects are there, and that I think that it's a good partnership, and I think what Columbia has done in terms of, again, being another resource where people can have access to that legacy is really important. One of the really exciting opportunities that the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation has and regularly takes advantage of is because we have intellectual property rights over a lot of these designs, we're able to engage in licensing agreements with really dozens of companies that are creating product that's inspired by the legacy of Frank Lloyd Wright. It's another way for us to be able to create awareness, because I think it would be almost impossible to have a funnel that's too wide at the top. And I say that for two reasons. One is, there is a real risk in this space, just as there is in the world of opera, that if we cannot make ourselves more welcoming and more exciting to dramatically larger numbers of people, there won't be enough connection with the next generation to be able to make this beauty and impact continually available to the next generation and beyond. And that's a moral obligation. It's connected deeply to the very heart of our mission. And I think that it can be. I know for some folks that are more purists, I understand their concerns. When they see something like these,
I was going to say,
like these, I
can we
wore
pan
these
to the
for
New
demonstration. These New Balance sneakers that were part of a partnership with
love
Kith
them. Yeah.
a few years ago. This pre-Joe time, but you get questions about them, and if you're just wearing these on the street, some people never take them out of their box or off of a shelf someplace. I wear them. I wear my shoes, and because they get a lot of questions, and it gives me a chance to be an ambassador for the organization, largely because they're conversation pieces. We have any number of licensees that are creating an incredibly dynamic and interesting groups of products that again, they're not meant to replace the legacy, but they can be a way that people feel connected to it. They can be a way for people who are passionate about Frank Lloyd Wright to be able to talk about that connection and be ambassadors, to have a piece of it, and again, not just these objects, but but the principles of organic design, this idea of when you say have a piece of it, how can we bring a piece of those ideas into our just day-to-day living? And even that's consistent with Frank Lloyd Wright's thinking. When you think about Usonian homes or American systems built, these were ideas about democratizing design, making beautiful living available for everyone. And there were things that worked really well with those approaches and things that didn't work as well, and budgets that either could or couldn't be achieved. But that idea of how do we bring beauty through organic design into everyday life, that is something that we're seeking to fully embody as the foundation at this time. But the roots of that really are with Wright himself.
Mm-hmm. I like it. And I can imagine it's also helping fund keeping the legacy alive.
Well, that's it.
Right? It's educating.
So the big idea here is we're a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
We are here to, in my view, deliver as much as we possibly can on the mission, which I've described to you. And if we do that right, if we are thinking of fully serving not just the community right around Taliesin West and Scottsdale, not just serving the community right around Spring Green, Wisconsin, where Taliesin is, but we're thinking nationally, and we're thinking nationally, and we're filling a void that very much needs to be filled for the people that are connected, and shining a light on something beautiful and meaningful for people that have never been introduced before. If we're doing all of that, then I believe that by the law of reciprocity, we'll be able to secure the resources that are necessary, not just to be able to continue all of the programming that are advancing the mission, but also doing all of the necessary preservation work that is essential, because there is nothing that communicates and inspires passion in people around this work more than being present in these spaces. Mm-hmm. And, especially with Taliesin and Taliesin West being in places with somewhat extreme climates, they are weathered, they're literally weathered. and there is a huge lift to be done in terms of caring for these spaces. But doing it right and securing the investment necessary to do that, I think first starts with how can we be as much as possible, as meaningfully as possible to as many people as possible, and then the task of saying, will you help us take this forward another generation, whether it's supporting a program or supporting a preservation project, supporting education for university residencies or those kids camps, we'll find a way for people to get involved. But I think our true north needs to be delivery of the mission first, and then I think everything else gets a lot easier.
Well, you're doing a brilliant job of it. So you really are. And just hearing what plans you guys have in the future, and I mean, kudos to you guys.
Thank you. There's a lot of exciting stuff to come.
And how many, we just briefly touched on the upkeep of Taliesin West. How many people a day did you say come through there on average?
Well, it varies seasonally.
Sure.
This is one of the exciting parts of the program. We have a total of a little over 100,000 people come to Taliesin West, about 30,000 this past year for Taliesin. I think those are numbers that we'd like to see increase over a period of time. But there's infrastructure that we need to consider. I mean, one of the big constraints is not sexy at all. We have parking constraints. There are only so many cars that you can get at a time. But it's not unusual for us to have 8,000-9,000 up to 10,000 people in a month that come to the property in season.
And that's a lot.
It's a little quieter in July.
Well, here anyway.
Here,
sure
but that's when it's busy.
In Wisconsin, it's busy.
That's where it's busy at Taliesin.
Yeah.
I think something we really feel strongly about is so much of that experimentation, Wright himself and with the fellowship, was happening at these two properties, and you don't have those iconic structures of, for instance, Guggenheim and Fallingwater in particular, without the kind of experimentation that was happening with Wright and the fellowship. And I really do hope over a period of time that we can help people who are interested in the space connect as much with these properties as they do with those others, because it's just adds another dimension of your understanding of just how much creativity went into, this enormous legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the UNESCO World Heritage Site?
Sure.
And how you get that designation and kind of what that is for our listeners?
Yeah, well, that was, again, this preceded Joe, but so there were a number of properties that were received a UNESCO World Heritage inscription several years ago as part of the Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture of the 20th century. And it's it's an enormous privilege that Taliesin and Taliesin West are both part of that designation. What it means more than anything is a recognition of the global importance of Frank Lloyd Wright's work and its legacy. And it creates also an obligation, and an obligation that we're proud to take on as the foundation to ensure that the durable impact of these properties and that legacy are cared for over a period of time. So we need to make sure that we are thoughtful in all the preservation work that we do. Nothing that would be dilutive of that greatness, because it's not about just sharing these properties with our local communities. It's about a global responsibility. We have a responsibility to tend to these places for the world to enjoy over a period of time. So
That's cool.
yeah, it's really cool. And the brand and impact of Frank Lloyd Wright is clearly international in a profound way. I would say that World Heritage designation just brings that a little bit more into stark relief.
Yeah. Any programs or big events planned at Taliesin West coming up?
Well, the things that we always have going on, if people are looking for ways to engage with the foundation, the most popular way that people engage at either of the properties is through tours. We have both audio and guided tours at both properties. And whether you have an hour or more, depending on your level of curiosity and your schedule, we have opportunities there and a variety of different kinds of tours people can enjoy. And again, I just have to stress, there's nothing like being physically in person in these spaces. So I really encourage people to do that. We have, a variety of more like community type events. We have film nights. We have what we call our Sunsets and Sips program. This is at Taliesin West, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a happy hour looking out over the prow of Taliesin West and enjoying the natural and built surroundings of the properties.
And I will just say how the architecture changes from doing the day tours that we've done and then going at Sunset and Sips and just seeing the shadows and what happens.
It's so neat. And of course, Wright was so mindful about how light changed over a period of time and how that inflected your experience in the buildings. We actually have in the spring running through the end of May, an artist in residence, Erica Lynn Hansen, that's doing an exhibition called Desert Mirror. So that will be as an added bonus for people who are touring the spaces, and that'll be running beginning this week through the end of May. And I think we're constantly looking for other ways to activate. We talked a little bit about education programs on campus and so forth.
And I think you guys participated in Desert Design Week. Didn't
We did.
you do something with them?
We'd have a couple events with Desert Design Week. I would say the foundation, in a broad sense, is in a very entrepreneurial gear. We're looking to find partners that are both expected and unexpected to help us, find ways to connect more meaningfully with the community. Desert Design Week was one of those neat things that makes total sense for us to have been involved with. But we also want to make sure we're really thinking about people at any level of experience. And, so when I think about K through 12, I think about the stories of a lot of people who share their love for Frank Lloyd Wright and his architecture and his design. A lot of the times, those people are telling me a story about a time they were 6 or 7 or maybe 12. They stood in a building and they had a transformative experience. These were the kinds of stories I'd hear a lot when I was in the world of opera. A lot of the time, that love is a seed that's planted at a relatively early age. And I really feel like a lot of what we're going to be thinking about moving forward is how do we recreate that experience for as many people as possible. And the amazing thing is that it doesn't only have to happen in your primary school years. There are have been plenty of stories of someone in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so I think that's going to be a lot of our orientation.
It is funny how many architects have told us they knew from the time they were 7 or 8 years old that's what they wanted to do because of an experience like that.
Yeah. It's really the way I think about this whole endeavor, and it's identical to the way I thought about opera and opera programming. This is a context that people can gather around, where they can find connection to other people, feel a sense of profundity because of this thing. They wouldn't be together if it weren't for the thing. In this case, the legacy of Frank Lloyd Wright and the beauty and power of these buildings and the way in which they grace their surroundings. But what makes it so special is the community itself. The connection itself is what ultimately becomes the most important. And I think Wright directs people, in a sense, to enjoy buildings in that idea of social connection. It's why the private spaces are small and the public spaces, like the garden room or the garden room at Taliesin West or the living room at Taliesin. There's built-in furniture there to tell you here's where you sit so you can enjoy each other's company. And that's a metaphor for what I think really matters is I think people need connection. I feel like we are digitally separated and I think about, for instance, social media. You couldn't be further away from a context that emulates organic architecture per se. We need to find a way to create more community through these spaces, through our programs, through our mission.
Yeah. Well, we know that our audience loves design and architecture. So can you tell us maybe some meaningful ways that they could engage with the foundation or support the foundation?
So in order to, see what's going on, there's no better place than to come and visit us on our social media. Look Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation. Come to our website, franklloydwright.org. In terms of support, you can find ways to become a sponsor or donate to the organization to become a member. But I think if someone hasn't been part of what we're doing before, I say just come. What we want most is, at the end of the day, we want people to share in this. So if you haven't come to something before, if you haven't been on property before, either Taliesin or Taliesin West, come onto the website, find the events that we have going on, find one that appeals to you, sign up and come join us. And because I really think once people have that initial experience, a lot of the time they're going to want to get more involved.
Yeah.
And we'll be excited to find ways to get people more involved as they deepen their relationship.
Yeah. All right. Go check it out. Taliesin West. He's right. All right. Time for some rapid fire.
Rapid fire. Okay. All right. I'll do my best.
This is good. I actually really want to know the answer to this. What is your personal favorite Frank Lloyd Wright property?
That's an awful question.
I think I have a lot of awful questions here for you.
I got that's the question I used to, in opera world, I used to get the question, what's your favorite opera? One of my dearest friends who passed a few years ago, Bob Tanzer, a towering member of this community, once answered this question about opera. He was a big opera lover, and I'm going to use Bob's answer to help me with this one.
All right.
Bob's answer to the question, what's your favorite opera? He said, whichever one I'm listening to at the time.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to go with that. By virtue of the fact that we are, headquartered at Taliesin West, obviously a really strong affinity there. I love being at Taliesin. These places are deeply spiritual, but I also love going to a Frank Lloyd Wright building that I've never been to before, and to kind of see, from a relatively layman's kind of perspective, what elements pop out, where the commonalities between, different buildings and so forth. I think that kind of discovery is a big piece of what makes it so much fun to be connected to this, because it creates a sense of play between yourself and Wright himself. You see that he
You can even see it in other architects that have trained with him or trained with architects that trained with him.
Yeah.
You can pick it. I have a lot of fun kind of picking out like what goes back, what links back to Frank Lloyd Wright.
Well, I think it was Van Gogh that said, "Great artists steal," you know, and you know, and I think, I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright's orientation was less about whether the people that were, you know, apprentices under him exactly emulated the techniques that he did. It was less about that than it was the mindset, the type of creative problem solving.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how those.
Well, that play, like I was visiting his home in Oak Park and seeing the tree that he built around. The light bulb in my mind was one of my local favorite architects, Wendell Burnett, who studied under him, and how he is always going around some sort of organic rock or a tree. I was like, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Got it.
on the
Seeing it in
and I think it's I mean those kinds of instances are really on the nose.
Yeah.
You know, like here's how you can see we are really talking about gracing the landscape.
Yeah.
But you know, there are more subtle cues as well.
Right.
Definitely.
And it's fun to find both the very explicit and the more implicit.
Yep.
So if Frank Lloyd Wright were alive today, what do you think he'd be most opinionated about when it comes to the foundation?
If there's one thing I'm certain of in this world is that I will not speak on behalf of Frank Lloyd Wright. I hope, what I would hope is that notion that I was sharing a moment ago about Frank Lloyd Wright's educational legacy being more about principles and how do those carry forward in an original way based on a particular creator. I hope that we are honoring that idea in that values-based preservation mode. Here we are in 2026, the ways in which we can share information, the ways in which we can share the legacy, the ways in which we can share the beauty of our two UNESCO World Heritage sites or any of the others, or uplifting this ecosystem of Frank Lloyd Wright, the way that we're welcoming more people to it. I hope that the spirit of that idea, which really goes to the heart of Frank Lloyd Wright's own thinking during his life, I hope that he would embrace that and be proud that we are striving, continuing to strive, and you never stop striving.
Yeah.
Good answer. Good answer. What's one misconception you think people have about Frank Lloyd Wright?
Oh, wow. What a great question. I think that, you can't get out of a cocktail party with this job without people making a leaky roof joke. I think, because the ways in which Frank Lloyd Wright thought of building oftentimes were very experimental. And and so the buildings are prone to what some people might call these kinds of certain types of flaws, certain types of deficiencies. I think that's a misconception I would pick at, that this was a person who wasn't necessarily striving for perfection. He was striving for creative growth, for experimentation, and I think his comfort level with imperfection was very high. And in fact, his ability to fail and reinvent is maybe one of the most inspiring things for anyone that studies this person's life. I mean, he experienced hardship and tragedy. You're talking about someone who was born 2 years after the Civil War ended and died at the beginning of the space age. He went through, 2 world wars, Great Depression, and at every inflection point where someone else might have stopped their journey and done something else. This is a person that was ready to reinvent and messily so in some cases. So I think I would say repositioning these deficiencies or these faults as expressions of creativity, experimentation, and a willingness to fail gosh, I think that's a lot more powerful.
I think more people should follow that.
Yeah. Well, being willing to make mistakes is, it's hard. You have to be really vulnerable. And I think in Wright's case, I think he had a sense of destiny, that started from the time he was a child. His mom intended this path for him of architecture. The type of resilience that you have to have, not just to keep going, but to reinvent. I think we all need that. And you can't do it if you have to be perfect all the time.
Very
you never leave
true.
the house if you have to be perfect all the time.
Very true.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to link all of the contact information for the foundation in our show
Fantastic.
notes. And you already told people what the website was, so we will put that in there. But we really appreciate you being here with us today.
It's great to be with you guys today, and so excited for the opportunity to welcome more and more people to what we do, and really grateful to you for making that platform available.
Yeah, and so are we. Thank you. All right. That's it for today's episode of Modern Home Mastermind. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, rate, and subscribe.
Thanks to our guest for sharing his insights, and to you for learning about everything modern with us.
And if you're ready to take the next step in your real estate journey, please reach out to us at Bespoke Real Estate. And until next time, keep living, loving everything modern.